In this episode, I am gonna take you through the full journey of how I went from sleeping on an air mattress in a freezing apartment, struggling to rebuild my life in Europe, to scripting and manifesting every single detail of my reality. And now I am doing it all again. But this isn't about some polished overnight success story. It's about the doubts, the setbacks, the resistance, and the moments I almost gave up. It's about the cacao ceremony that changed everything. The moment I asked my soul, what is my purpose on earth? And the answer I got shook to my core. If you ever felt like you were meant for more but don't know how to get there, if you ever felt stuck between the life you have and the life you know you're supposed to be living, if you have been waiting for the right time to start, this podcast is for you. I'm Giovanna Ferreira and welcome to the Embrace Manifestation podcast, where I take you behind the scenes as I build my next level life in real time, sharing everything I learn along the way with you. Your dream life isn't just a fantasy, it's a decision, and it starts right here. A little bit about my background. I was born in Brazil, and from as early as I can remember, my brain was wired for logic. Numbers just made sense to me. It was much more sense than words ever did. Science had structure and formulas and clear answers, and I wasn't a kid writing stories or drawing pictures. I was the one actually questioning how things worked. I needed to know why things happened, how they functioned, and if there was a way to break it down into a pattern. I was obsessed with figuring it out. Physics was my absolutely favorite subject in school, and mechanical engineering just made sense. It felt that it was a natural path. It wasn't even a question. I wanted to understand the world, and engineering gave me a structured way to do that. It felt like the right choice. But here's the thing. Sometimes you follow the logical path for you, and it doesn't quite fit. I graduated, I got my degree, and almost immediately I realized that I didn't want to work as a traditional engineer. I loved the problem-solving part, but I couldn't see myself spending my life in a corporate engineering job. It didn't excite me the way I thought it would. So I let life take me somewhere else. I ended up in commercial marketing, still using my analytical brain, but in a completely different way. And for a while, it seemed like I was on the right path. It was interesting, challenging, and gave me a new perspective of things and business. Deep down, there was something else, a dream that had never left. Well, so you understand, at 15, I had a chance to be an exchange student in Germany, and I spent an entire year living with a host family there, completely immersed in a different culture, and this changed everything for me. So for the first time, I experienced how to live abroad and also how to live in Europe. And I loved everything about it, the structure, the lifestyle, the way everything was. And from that moment on, I knew that I wanted to come back, but that time to live here full time. But it wasn't as simple as just moving, cities. I was a Brazilian. I didn't have an EU passport, and I didn't have the right to just come here and live here. So for years, this just remained as a dream, something that it was on the back of my mind, and I just continued living my life in Brazil. Until one day, something happened. One day, someone recommended me a book. The name is The Power of Your Subconscious Mind by Joseph Murphy. And that time, I was deep into therapy. I started having therapy since I was 18 years old. I worked through my personal struggles, traumas, overcoming challenges, just like anyone else. But I never thought about the idea that we are not just here to get through life. We actually are here to create it. That book introduced me to something I had never considered before, the idea that our subconscious beliefs shape our reality, that the way we think, the words we use, the images we hold in our minds, they actually shape everything. They shape our experiences and consequently the things that happen to us in our reality. So I read that book and I started applying little things here and there, but I wasn't fully committed. It was just like drinking water. You drink because you know it's good for you. I wasn't obsessed. I wasn't treating it like a priority. And yet, even in that small passive way, things started to shift. And then I discovered something that changed absolutely everything. So by basically a random coincidences, I found out that my father had Italian ancestry. And this might not sound like a big deal at first, but for me it was everything. I didn't have a connection with my father. He had been out of my life since I was 1 year old, so I had no connection to him, no relation. And then suddenly this missing piece of my past held the key to my future. I realized that if I could prove my Italian lineage, I could apply for a citizenship, and that meant I could finally legally move to Europe. So I went all in. I started searching through every document I could find, birth certificates, death records. I even went once to the cemetery to track down dates. I followed the paperwork like a detective, piecing together a story of my family that I had never been told. And then the whole time, something inside me kept saying, this is it. This is the way. I knew I had to do this. And when my Italian was finally finalized and approved, I didn't hesitate for a second. I quit my job. I bought a one-way ticket to Berlin. I packed 2 cases because that was what was allowed in the airplane. No money, no apartment, no job, no plan. Just a deep, unshakable knowing that my life was waiting for me across the Atlantic. Well, naturally, people thought I was crazy, right? I had a stable job, actually a high-paying job, and I suddenly was quitting for nothing. No job, no nothing. So they asked, what if it doesn't work? What if you fail? What if you end up struggling? But here's the thing, when you know, you know. And when you know something that deeply, you don't need a plan B. It's plan A all the way. Well, let me be real here with you. The first months in Berlin, they were brutal. Before I landed there, I knew it was going to be like easy peasy. I had no job waiting for me, no apartment, and I had barely enough money to, last a couple of months. I didn't have that much money. But knowing something in theory and actually living through it are 2 completely different things. The first thing I needed was a place to stay. I had no credit history in Germany, no steady income, and rental contracts are not just like handed out to people with zero financial. So I did what I could. I found a tiny shared apartment, thing I could afford. It was old, run down, and barely functional, but I told myself it was temporary. I could make it work. Then came the job. I applied everywhere, dozens of applications, anything that actually could cover my rent. I was accepting anything. Even if it was very far from what I had imagined. And then finally I got hired. I got hired as a hotel waitress to serve breakfast. I have never worked in hospitality before, and this wasn't a glamorous coffee job, This was hard work. My shift started at 5 a.m., which meant I had to wake up at 3:30 in the morning every single day. So basically in the middle of the night. And often after freezing through the night because my heating barely worked. I would walk through the dark, empty streets of Berlin exhausted, questioning every single decisions I had made to get. And then I would get to the hotel, tie my apron, and start serving breakfast to people who had no idea that the person bringing the coffee to them could barely afford a bed. In this job, I was making 800 euros net a month. And in Berlin, that was nothing. Rent took a huge chunk, groceries had planned carefully, no extras, no splurging, no eating out, every euro was counted, and the apartment falling apart. So the heating system broke in the middle of winter, and Berlin winter is no joke. It was bone, and I had no way to, I didn't have any money, and my landlord wasn't in a rush to help, so that was it. During winter, I lit candles to keep warm, not because I wanted a cozy ambiance, just because I literally had no other option. And showers, forget hot water. I had to heat water in a pot, pour into a mug, and bathe. I remember standing in that tiny bathroom shivering, pouring warm water through my body, and thinking, what am I doing? How does this gonna work? And to be honest, this was not even the worst part. The worst part was the air mattress. I couldn't afford a proper bed, so I bought a Decathlon air mattress, the kind that people use for camping. And the thing about air mattresses is that they deflate. Almost every single night, I would wake up on the hard, cold floor because the air had slowly leaked it out while I would pump it up every single night before bed, knowing full well that by morning, it would be half empty. I was exhausted, physically, emotionally, and mentally. And yet, I never doubted my decision, because when you know, when you have a dream deep in your bones, it's like something is calling you. And that was it. I felt that there was a calling, a reason for me to be here. Even in those dark moments, I never doubted my decision, because even in those hardest moments, I felt something I had never felt before. This freedom and the realization that I made my dream come true. I was struggling, yes, but I was building something. This wasn't suffering for the sake. This was laying the foundation for something big. And that thought kept me going. And every day I would practice gratitude, because that was what kept me sane. Because even when my mattress was deflated, even when I was freezing, even when my body ached because I had to wake up at 3:30 in the morning every single day, I was grateful. I had made it to Europe. And for those who are not immigrants, they're probably not going to relate, but for those who are, they know This being an immigrant and dreaming about moving to another country is a lifelong dream, and it is not. When you make it, you really feel grateful and blessed, because there are so many other people that want to have that opportunity. And I had that opportunity, and even though it was hard, I was extremely grateful. Well, eventually things started shifting. I moved to the Netherlands to be with my partner, who, by the way, I met 30 days after moving to Europe, so it felt really like it was meant to be, and I'll tell this story in another episode. When I came to the Netherlands, it felt that everything was like waiting for me. I managed to get a job very quickly in a supermarket that actually would pay twice what I was making in Berlin. I actually also got into a master's and I completed the master in econometrics at the Erasmus University Rotterdam. And this program was like super challenging, and it was ranked as the most difficult in the Netherlands for 5 years in a row. So that was really a shiny object in my resume that I was really proud of. And then right after I graduated, I actually manifested my dream job. So basically, but to the detail, I scripted it, how I would feel, the colleagues, the place, the culture, even the salary, and I manifested right after I graduated. So basically, I graduated in October, and then in February I started this job, and I should have felt like I had made it. I should have been happy, but something felt off. I kept thinking, is this it? I had spent my entire life chasing goals, getting my degree, moving to Europe, finding a good job, climbing the corporate ladder, and yet with every single box I checked, I felt emptier. I couldn't really understand. I had gone through and I had done everything right. Why did I feel like something was missing? I tried to push this feeling away. I threw myself into the job, working hard, trying to convince myself that maybe I just needed to adjust or be patient. But the more I ignored it, the louder it got. And then eventually I ended up burning out, physically, emotionally, and even spiritually. And then I knew I needed a break, a reset. And then was when I found the cacao ceremony. So it was late at one night. I was scrolling online, searching for something that might help me through that period, to make sense of what I was feeling. And then I stumbled across a listing for a cacao ceremony led by a shaman. And I had heard of cacao ceremonies before, but never really understood what they were. But something called me. So I signed up for it. And I was really excited about it. When the day arrived, I got to the ceremony quite early. I was anxious. And the space was really warm, intimate, So there were candles lit. There was incense smell. Felt really like embracing and safe. That made me feel kind of... The shaman greeted us. And before we even started her own story. And that hit me like a mirror. Her story was basically that she's a corporate lawyer. She had spent years in a high-pressure, prestigious job, continuously pushing herself, working hard, long hours, climbing the corporate ladder as well, until one day she hit a wall and she burned down completely, physically collapsing under the weight of the life she had built. And in the aftermath of the breakdown, discovered cacao, and then she left everything behind to pursue this, this path. She walked away from the career that she had spent years building, the identity that she had tied herself to, and followed an entirely new path, one that felt right for her, one that felt aligned. We began a ceremony by drinking pure ceremonial cacao, not the sugary processed kind, but the real thing, thick, rich, and slightly bitter, like drinking pure earth itself. And as I sipped, I felt a warmth spread through my chest, almost like my heart was waking up. So the shaman explained to us that cacao is a heart opener. Unlike coffee, which speeds us up, cacao actually slows you down and make you connect with the energy of the heart. So it pulls you inward, making you listen to your emotions, your intuition, your truth. And then after drinking the cacao, we went through a deep reflection moment. So she gave us a questionnaire and she asked us to reply those questions with the first thing that came to mind. So things like, what did you love to do as a child? What made you feel truly alive? What parts of yourself have you abandoned? If you had no limitations, what would you create? Things like this. And then we would have to write the first thing that came to mind, because that was actually our intuition. And then suddenly I was like 6 years old again. I remember surrounded by books, I had also, like, as a kid, I loved journal. So I had my diary and I would write things that happened, but also things that didn't happen. So even back in the day, I was already scripting as a child. Look how crazy things are. I was also like a kid of knowledge. I would love to, I was actually a very mature kid for my age. I would actually have conversations with adults, really managing to hold a conversation in economics and politics, because knowledge was my best friend. I always loved to learn. And then moving from my childhood, I started to think about now how I had slowly let go of that version of myself, how in my chase for success, I actually had abandoned the things that I actually lit me up. And then came the part that changed everything. So the shaman told us to lay down, get comfortable under a blanket, and then she started to use her drums, talk in a very hypnotic voice, because the idea was to put us in a trance. So she told us to visualize ourselves walking into a sacred temple, a place that represented our essence and where our soul lives. So for some it was beach, for some it was forest, and for me it was a massive library. So that totally made sense, right? Because knowledge was so important to me, and this library was in a round shaped form, and there was books everywhere. So from bookshelves that stretched to sky, and it was breathtaking. It really made sense, you know, that my temple would be books, since knowledge was so important. And then in the center of this vast library, we meet our soul. Our soul was standing there, and my soul actually showed up as a tree. Here, everybody kind of like sees their soul in different ways, and mine was a tree, a massive ancient tree. And that also made total sense. So I am the kind of person that goes to the park and hug trees. I really feel that energy, that ancient energy that trees has. I've been always obsessed with trees, and I keep saying, you know, to my boyfriend that when I die, I really want to be cremated and my ash fused to a tree, because I want to become a tree in the afterlife. So that totally made sense that my higher self would appear in a form of a tree, something that I'm really connected. Then she asked the question, you know, like, what is my purpose on earth? What am I doing here? And then I asked this question, and the answer hit me like a lightning. So my soul, the tree, said, your purpose is to help others manifest the life of their dream. I started to cry immediately, and I don't know if it was from terror or from emotion. I just started crying. It made no sense. I could not explain it, but I knew in my heart that that was true and that really happened. But yet I was terrified, because at that moment I was not living my purpose. I spent my whole life after degrees and education and promotions and high-paying job and so on, and then suddenly I discover that my purpose on earth, be a light worker, to help others manifest the life of their dreams. So that felt really overwhelming, and I had no idea how I would do that. How the hell do I do this? You know, what does it even mean? How do I start? Kind of crazy, you know. So I went home, I shared this with my partner. He's not a believer, more difficult for me, you know, because I didn't have anybody to share. And I mean, you cannot tell this to anyone, right? People are going to think you're crazy. But I went home, I let it sink, took a day or two to really reflect on it. For months, I had this idea of starting a YouTube channel on actually meditation. So my idea was to record self-hypnosis and meditations to really help others, because I truly believe that by helping others, I'm actually helping myself. But it never took off. I never started. I never actually put energy on it. I think because just life happens, and then you forget things that you get insight from the universe to do. So I decided that moment after that ceremony that I was gonna do something. So the easiest thing that came to my mind was to start an Instagram page. So I started Embrace Manifestation. Actually, first, I started a page and Expand Your Mind Academy. And well, I was never on social media. So I didn't even have my personal account. I deleted during the pandemic. So I didn't really know what to do. I didn't really know how to create the content, how to script caption, how to make reels. All of that was super new. But I was determined. I was gonna make this work. So I took some courses, and then eventually I left the page Expand Your Mind Academy, and I started Embrace Manifestation, which is my current Instagram page. And I did the work, I took storytelling courses, I took courses on Instagram growth. I actually have an Instagram growth coach, but even though I was putting that effort in Instagram, and I was happy because, I was living my purpose, my Instagram is growing very slowly. So it didn't really have that payoff, when you put effort on something, you really expect a positive feedback, and in this case, the positive feedback would be to have the growth and the page actually to flourish. But that was not what happened. So I was really feeling frustrated. And then 2 weeks ago, I was in Threads, and I saw a comment of a girl that had been through the same thing. So she was putting her heart and soul on Instagram and not really seeing results. And then she started Threads, and everything kind of fell into place. She really went viral on Threads, and now she's really managing to grow her community. And then something started to nag me. Ivana, you've been saying that you're going to start a YouTube channel and you never did. So I was like, okay, I need to do that, because maybe my space, really not Instagram, maybe my space is YouTube, or maybe I need to move that energy in YouTube to actually flourish my Instagram account. So I decided to start this channel. The fact that I'm not growing on Instagram isn't Instagram's problem. I'm still committed to it. The page still exists. But maybe it's just not my space. Maybe just one piece of something bigger, and sitting down and speaking my truth, telling my story, that feels kind of a line, talking, not in a 60-second reel. So right there, I decided, the plan was I start a channel in July, but I'm not waiting. I'm here. I'm starting now. Not because it's perfect, not because I have a strategy, not because I even know what I am doing and what it's gonna turn out to, but because I know deep in my bones that this is the next step. So here I am, no perfect launch, no polished strategy, no polished script, just me showing up, following this pull, and trusting that this is exactly where I'm supposed to be. And if you're here listening to this, maybe you've been feeling that pull too, maybe you've been trying to force something that isn't quite working for you, maybe you have been waiting for the right time to start something new. Well, let this be your sign. Start right now, beginning. And I would like to ask, any part of this resonate with you, just hit the subscribe button, because every week I'll be sharing my process in real time with you, the techniques I'm using, the that are happening in my life, the lessons I am learning, and I want you, if there's something in the story that stood out, something that you would want me to go deeper into, just send me a message, a DM on Instagram, or just leave a comment here, and let me know. And if you know someone who needs to hear this, share it with them, please, because this is how I can grow this channel. I just wanted to say that we're not victims, we are creators, and it is time to step into that power. I'll see you in the next episode. Alright, here comes the boring part, the things the lawyers make me say. This podcast is for educational and informational purpose only. Nothing shared here should be considered financial, medical, psychological, or legal advice. I'm not a doctor, therapist, lawyer, or your personal manifestation guru, just someone sharing my journey, experience, and insight. Manifestation is power, but it's not a substitute for professional guidance when needed. You're responsible for your own decisions, actions, and results. Now that we got this out of the way, let's get back to designing the life of our dreams. See you next time.